Good morning, kids, and today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcross Studios of turning Suicide Squad characters into dragons. It was either this or one other video that didn't really pique my interest, so I went with Suicide Squad Dragons. Oh my god, I messed it up, so I am so sorry. Suicide Squad Dragons. I'm so sorry. You gotta forgive me about that. Okay, let's move on.
We're now into the second episode of my Suicide Squad Grand Prix, where 3 Mondays in a row I'm doing 3 different Suicide Squad based videos. As promised, today's is Suicide Squad characters as dragons, and I want to thank everybody that gave me suggestions for what characters to use, because that did influence who I ended up picking for this episode. If you want, give me even more suggestions for cartoon characters you'd want to see turned into Suicide Squad characters, because I'm debating between doing another round of that and doing Has-Been Hotel Suicide Squad, but haven't decided for sure, so maybe the comments will help influence me. And of course, subscribe if you're new here to see what Suicide Squad episode comes out next. But for now, we've got dragons.
Let's go.
Hit like if you want. Subscribe
if you feel like it.
By
the way,
but either way,
enjoy the show. Oop, hold on. Video's lagging. There we go. We're good.
One of the things I've learned over the last few years is that many
of course, the one and only Harley Quinn
myths and legends I heard as a child are indeed true.
Dragon.
Though, as time goes on, tales can be skewed or have details altered, so it can be difficult to know which version of a tale, if any, is accurate. This came to mind recently as, for the first time, I came across a female member of a species that I'd studied before. The males of its kind look dramatically different, and are even given a different name, the Cackling Chaos Jesters. The females are referred to as Cackling Chaos Harlequins, and both versions are sadistic and lethal beasts, despite their relatively small stature by regular dragon standards.
Sexual dimorphism.
Although the females can be slightly more playful than cruel. Still, the legend that came to mind upon seeing this creature in the wild was that of a sorceress who would curse dangerous and unique dragons and force them to do her bidding. If they did not follow her commands, the cursed mark that she burned into the backs of their necks would begin to dissolve their flesh until they did as she demanded. If they did not, then they'd soon die from the curse. I had heard various versions of this tale. Some claimed this woman would take human prisoners and turn them into dragons. Some claimed she herself had the ability to transform into a dragon at will. But one consistent element was that a Cackling Chaos Harlequin was frequently a member of her team of enslaved dragons. I grew so curious as to know the truth of this story that I asked a few beings from my realm who may have known. The overseer who watched this world prior to myself claimed if the tales were true, they'd occurred before his time. So I then went to a group that has captured and studied unique and dangerous dragons for centuries. The Slayers of Cursed Predators.
Yes.
They were finally able to illuminate me in a greater way than I could have even hoped. The sorceress in the story has gone by variations of the same name in legends, but in truth, she was called Amandine Wallard, and she'd been a member of the Slayer's ranks.
Oh.
Now, in previous episodes, I had...
and immediately onto the design notes. Half story, half design notes. Cool.
Already established...
I'm not mad!
Some lore and mentions of Suicide Squad characters as dragons. In my DC Dragons episode, when I drew the Joker as a dragon, I established that the female counterparts of his species were pretty Harley Quinn-looking kinds of characters and inspired characters that looked a bit more like hyenas, because Harley Quinn often has 2 pet hyenas. But then also in a dinosaur variety episode, I had Vasilia Kuznet, my armor crafting narrator, mention in conversation with some of my other characters that in her world, which is this same world this story is taking place in, there was a sorceress named Amanda Waller who took people and turned them into dragons and made them do her bidding. And I didn't really want to go that route with this story, which is why I worked in the concept that it's a legend that has various versions and tellings of it, so Vasilia Kuznet could just have a slightly altered version of the story that wasn't actually true, and now I can build in a sort of retcon that also fits in the context of this story and episode, so that I could rewrite this in a slightly different way. Now, in terms of the actual design of this dragon, I really like how it looks. I think I might have made the nose a little bit too broad, or at least it doesn't quite look as hyena-like as I'd wanted it to. That may be a factor of the coloring. I tried to add in the spots to make it a little bit more hyena-like, but I also wanted to give this Harley Quinn's proper colors and not the colors of a regular hyena. But the main thing I really like about this one is I feel like the expression, even if the face isn't quite the shape I wanted it to be, the expression feels very Harley Quinn. I hope you all like the result. Let's take a look.
It's not a bad dragon to start us off with, but he can always do better. So, let's see. Who's
the
next?
Slayers claimed that Amandine had discovered this...
Wait. The Spot? Really? Oh, wait, no. Polka Dot Man. Is that his name? Spot is Spider-Man. Yeah, I think
Curse
this guy's
that allowed
Polka
her
Dot.
to control any creature, and had tested it on a cackling chaos Harlequin to prove to her comrades that it was a viable tool, and wouldn't bring instant death to any of the more unique dragons they'd captured. She made a very clear and strong case that they should use other dragons and beasts to hunt down the more dangerous predators they sought. They would already, as a group, occasionally use the rare, friendly creatures they captured as assets, but she stated that the less cooperative ones had plenty of potential as well, if they could be controlled, that is. She claimed that if a beast as powerful as, say, a superior sky dragon ever decided to fly to their base and tear its roof off, they should have a group of dragons at the ready to face it. They allowed her to attempt this on a trial basis, but beginning with dragons that were not overly powerful and dangerous. They told her that if she could control a group of dragons and have them hunt down a particular dragon that had been eluding them and killing any who came after it recently, then they would allow her to continue this venture. She was not pleased about the options they gave her for creatures to take at first, but she worked with what she had. The first chosen for the ranks, after her cackling chaos dragon, was the spotted Pocatrice. This was not a widely seen species, but an individual cockatrice that seemed to have already been given some sort of curse. Its body was covered in colored spots that would swell and weigh it down, unless it expelled a certain amount of colored flames every day. It was a timid and erratic creature, but still had its uses. The colorful fireballs it shot could melt through even the hide of a very well-armored dragon in seconds.
Damn.
It couldn't fly, as its wings' growth seemed to have been stunted in early life, but could at least glide for a short distance if need be, reducing its likelihood of being killed in a fall. Amandine gave this creature her cursed burn in its neck, then quickly showed it the consequences of not following her directives. Soon enough, it was taking her commands and ready for the hunt. Now, I don't entirely know why this is the case, but when I looked at Polka Dot Man, trying to decide what to do to him, a line from this very Canadian show called Letterkenny kept coming to my head, and the character that says the line is a guy named Wayne, one of the main characters of the show, who is actually one of the main inspirations for Captain Darrable, a character that exists in the same universe. And the line is, I wish you weren't so friggin' awkward there, bud. And I guess it's just because when I look at Polka Dot Man, I think of a very awkward character, at least how he's portrayed in the James Gunn version of the Suicide Squad. And so I started thinking about, okay, what's an awkward kind of creature that I could pull inspiration from? And from that, the first image that popped to my head for some reason was an oviraptor, which is like a sort of turkey-looking raptor with a bit of a crest on top of its head. So I was just like, yeah, I'm going to go with this. And I really like that result, and as I was doing it, it made me think of a cockatrice, which is like a mythical creature that's a blend of like a chicken or turkey and a dragon. So I was like, yeah, I like the ring of Pocatrice, so I just kind of leaned into that a little bit more. It does admittedly look like if we took the fireballs out of this drawing, it would just be a dinosaur, like from a Suicide Squad Characters as Dinosaurs episode, but I still really like how it turned out, so I'm fine with that, and it feels like a good, goofy, and weird sort of dragon to help flesh out some variety in this episode. And I'd say feels pretty true to the character of Polka Dot Man.
Posters from this episode are available on my Teespring store. I've got an art book with lots of other monsters and dragons in it.
Yeah, let me just quickly go
I'll be honest, I'm not.
We'll be right back for King Shark. And we're back with King Shark.
The third beast Amandine added to her roster was one that the Slayers were skeptical about allowing her to utilize. It was a creature they'd captured around the Polynesian Isles that had been seen by some tribes near there as a god. It was a 50-foot-long shark wyvern that they called Nanawigona. It had a fairly simple form, but with black markings along its hide that could light up in a brilliant blue glow. When its markings began to shine, it meant it was either hungry or angry, and either way you would not want to be in its presence. It would become nearly unstoppable when fully illuminated, and unpredictable things could happen around it, such as massive whirlpools manifesting, violent storms appearing, or swarms of sea creatures descending on Nanawagona's prey. Thankfully, to that point in captivity, it had been quite docile, so long as they kept it fed. While it slept, Amandine was allowed into the creature's cage and gave it her mark. Soon after, her 3 cursed dragons were led by her to hunt down a creature called the Deathblade Razorstroke. It was a one-of-a-kind creature, but they also suspected that prior to it being hunted by Amandine's beasts, it may have mated with a female of a different breed and spawned the creatures that nowadays are called the Deathproof Razortails. The Deathblade had been relentlessly hunting and killing any powerful dragons or knights it could find, and it needed to be stopped, whether that meant capturing it or slaying it, though they preferred the latter.
So either the dragon is going to be Deadpool or Deathstroke. I want to see which one it is, but I don't want to spoil it.
The Slayers were skeptical Amandine could stop it with the group she led, but she was nothing if not determined. She rode the back of the cackling Chaos Harlequin and set off to seek her mark. Now, to be totally honest, when I finished this drawing originally, I was like, boo, boring. It just was, like, it looked okay, but for a king shark dragon, one that I was probably the most excited to do for this episode, I felt like I dropped the ball on it. Like, I really wished I'd picked a more interesting pose, had him filling more of the frame and coming towards us a bit more. But after the recording was finished, it might have even been the following morning, I went back and made a few tweaks and changed some things that help me like it more. It's still definitely not my favorite of the piece, but the 2 main things I did were, 1, I went in and added more of its markings inspired by Polynesian, Samoan, Hawaiian tattoos, and then also changed where some of it's glowing to have a bit more contrast on its stomach and stuff like that. And then I also, in After Effects, where I export all the final pieces and do a little extra tweaking to saturation and contrast and stuff like that, I just ever so slightly rotated the image on a 3D plane so that his head is closer to us. And that just, it didn't do much, but it helped it feel a little bit more dynamic, a little bit like he's coming towards us. And again, it's still not my favorite from this episode, but I think that did bring it to a point where I wasn't disappointed with it anymore. Admittedly, if I hadn't been a little bit behind schedule this week, I would have definitely considered just redoing this drawing, but I also have no regrets about the fact that I spent more time this week on Alexis's solo leveling, which is the episode that came out previous to this one, which was also a community redraw, because I absolutely love how that episode and story turned out, so I think the extra time was warranted. Anyway, hopefully some of you out there like this one a bit better than I do. Here it is.
Oh yeah, right here. Freaking love King Shark. I don't know why. I like monsters. Well, I like monsters because they're so kind of humanoid. Like, mentally at least.
Now, even at the time of Amandine's...
Oh, I caught it! Deathstroke! Caught it! Oh, I wasn't right on the first guess, but I was right on the second.
trial run, other members of the Slayers were uncertain of whether her plan had played out as intended or not. But either way, it had been clear to all that she'd been satisfied with her results. When she entered the Deathblade's last known territory, she set the Pocatrice out to act as a lure, toppling trees with its flames near a wide and deep lake. She said that she wanted the Pocatrice to lure out the beast and begin damaging its armored plating, but some claimed that she knew her mark well enough to be aware that that was not likely to work. The Deathblade did find the Pocatrice, but the way they learned of its arrival was by a rapid bolt of flames exploding out of the woods and punching right through the Pocatrice's head, killing it instantly.
Oh no!
The Razorstroke then emerged from the tree line and came down to inspect and possibly consume its prey, but the Pocatrice had been slain right next to the lake's shore. In full blue glow, Nanawigona burst up out of the lake's depths and bit into the dragon's leg, then dragged it down into the water.
Oh,
the creature fought back and was even mighty enough to carve some scars into Nanawigona's hide, but it was out of its element. It did manage to escape the beast's grip by using its blades to lop off some of the shark beast's fingers, but when it tried to emerge from the water, Amandine was there waiting astride the cackling Chaos Harlequin, which smacked the beast back into the water with its hammer-clubbed tail. Nanawigona brought the beast to the edge of death.
I'm sorry, did Polka Dot Man die in the first Suicide Squad movie? I never saw it. If he did, that kind of sucks for both him and the character.
but then dragged it out of the water, unconscious yet still clinging to life. Wallard was then able to bind it in specially enchanted chains, and eventually called in reinforcements to bring it back to the Slayer's base. Whether she'd truly allowed the Poketrice to be knowingly terminal bait or not, she had gotten the job done. They approved future use of this tactic, and when it had healed, she'd even be allowed to bring the Deathblade on a mission. Now, I inquired as to what truth there may be in other versions of the legends I'd heard, such as Amandine turning humans into dragons to do her bidding. But surprisingly, the Slayers had a very clear answer as to why there were so many variations on the legend. They had spread alternate versions of the tale themselves. Their organization has always kept itself secret, but eventually, after Amandine had taken various teams of dragons and beasts out on hunts, she grew careless, and people started to see her alongside the bizarre creatures that she hunted with, many of which the Slayers had long tried to keep secret from the world. Tales of her exploits began to spread, so along with shutting down her experiment, the Slayers began spreading various versions of the story, with wildly varying details and rumors, but similar enough to all seem like people making up their own versions of the same tale. Doing so meant that fewer and fewer people believed that the tales could actually be true, and just started telling them as little more than a story to scare or entertain children. It was a cleverly executed deterrent to information of their organization getting out, but I am glad that in the least I now personally know the truth of another legend that I once thought to be pure myth. Now, full disclosure, just how my schedule has shaken out this week, I haven't actually drawn the Deathstroke dragon at the time I'm recording the audio for this part. I had done the other dragon drawings, but just hadn't gotten to that one yet, so whatever you're seeing, I haven't actually seen yet. But my intent is to make this the best dragon of the episode. I love Deathstroke's original design. I especially love the Arkham version of his look, and I really want to crush it with this one. I was actually surprised to realize that I haven't used Deathstroke more. I think I've only used him twice, once in the DC Mandalorians episode, and once mixed with Thanos in my second Weird Marvel and DC Fusions episode. Maybe there's more than that I'm just not thinking of. But either way, I'm very excited to draw this one. Oh, and I, of course, felt like I had to work in a Deadpool reference, because Deadpool was originally a ripoff of Deathstroke, which not everybody necessarily knows, but when you know it, it becomes more obvious. They've got similar design elements, similar fighting styles. Slade Wilson, Wade Wilson. If you didn't know it before, you at least do now. Hence why I referenced earlier in the episode that my Deadpool dragons were possibly descendants of this creature. Anyway, you can all let me know in the comments if you think I ended up making this one the best one of the episode as I intended. But here's the finished version.
I think you did pretty well. And with this dragon, I move back over. Feels good to be back on the light.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode, are excited for the Percy Jackson episode that I have coming out on Friday, that the first season's
that was actually the other choice of video
ending this week, as well as are excited about the next Suicide Squad episode. But also, if you're new here and you want more stuff like this, I highly recommend checking out my most recent episode of Artist Reboot, where I rebooted some old goofy Batman villains onto a modern day Suicide Squad. Or if you want more DC really Dragons, I recommend checking out the previous episode of that. But besides that, that's all for today, except, of course, for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with this week is a quote I read from Roberta Bobby, who simply said, "Please pay attention to how you feel after spending time with someone." I think that's a nice, simple, and clear one, because you may find with just a little bit of attention on yourself after you've spent time with someone that you chose to spend time with, it's possible that instead of that person inspiring you and helping you want to lead a better life, they may just be draining the energy out of you. I hope you don't have people like that in your life, but still a good thing to think about. I hope that's helpful or inspiring in some way, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.
Well, folks, that's going to be the end of today's video, so I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below, and I'll see all you folks next time when we flick on. Peace out.